You know, as I meet with citizens throughout our state and nation, I'm often asked, why did I join the military? And what does it mean to be a veteran? So to answer these questions, I have to give a little bit of personal background information. First, I do not come from a military family. In fact, my only immediate relative who was a veteran was my uncle, who served in the Army during the Vietnam conflict. During my senior year of high school, I had been fortunate to have received an appointment to the United States Coast Guard Academy. However, a sports injury that fall prevented my attending the academy. So I enrolled in the University of Delaware, and when I was a freshman, criminal justice major, I was focused on getting my degree and had wanted to become a Delaware State Trooper. I was approached by a member of the Army ROTC program and asked if I had ever thought about joining the military. Having been so close to serving in the Coast Guard, I took some time and we discussed the leadership opportunities, the job skill training, and of course the financial benefits such as the ROTC scholarship. So I enrolled in the ROTC program, and during my senior year, after having earned a 2-year Army ROTC scholarship, but also still being focused on being a trooper, I joined the Delaware National Guard, in which I am very proud to say I continue to serve. The majority of my career, 30 years of the 36 years in fact, was as a traditional guardsman, someone who trains 1 weekend a month and 2 weeks a year, all while working for over 28 years as a Delaware trooper. I also need to share the fact that my wife, who recently retired from the National Guard after serving 37 years with Delaware and Connecticut, is also a product of the University of Delaware Army ROTC program and an Afghanistan veteran. Our son is also a former member of the Delaware Army National Guard and an Afghanistan veteran. Our daughter, who did not serve in the military, however, having been a part of 3 deployments and helping maintain normalcy at home, she certainly has experiences and credentials not often experienced in our society. As a member of the Delaware National Guard, I've participated in some really interesting training, from driving tanks, rappelling from helicopters, training in the mountains and deserts, to operating all kinds of different weapon systems. I've also participated in exciting operational events, such as serving the citizens of Delaware during ice storms, snowstorms, and floods, pandemics, and most importantly, I have been fortunate to have become part of a team of outstanding citizen soldiers and airmen who have committed significant portions of their lives to serving the citizens of the state of Delaware in the United States of America. Veterans Day is an opportunity to recognize those citizens who have raised their right hands and taken the oath to serve, not only our nation as a whole, but all of our families and each of our communities. Less than 0.5% of our nation's citizens, over 22 million Americans since the founding of our country, have chosen to serve by joining one of our military organizations, and it is certainly appropriate to carry on to the tradition established in 1919 when President Woodrow Wilson addressed citizens of the United States 1 year after the end of World War I and recognized the sacrifice of our veterans. After all the years of conflict throughout our nation's history, and more recently, both conflicts in Iraq and Afghanistan, and many other locations throughout the world, we certainly have learned to appreciate the sacrifices these men and women have made and continue to make on behalf of the United States. Well, for many of our service members, the track of their careers really comes down to several factors. The majority serve an initial period of service with usually a deployment mixed in, and as the challenges of their civilian career, their families, and their life in general become more involved, they may choose not to re-enlist. However, for many of our families, the pay, the medical benefits, combined with a part-time job with a pension, will provide an incentive to continue service through at least 20 years, where they will lock in the long-term benefits of the organization. For my wife and me, our length of service is really a result of a total team effort. Certainly, with us making conscious decisions to complete all the required professional education, along with accepting the typical leadership assignments that come along in the organization. We also had to lean on our families, particularly when the kids were young and we would be on extended training in schools. Having strong family support was crucial to our longevity. As guardsmen, there was also the civilian employer factor. We were both fortunate to work for the state of Delaware, which is incredibly supportive of its Guard and Reserve members. And our immediate supervisors not only encouraged our participation, but recognized the values that we can bring to both organizations and provided the support needed to work through some of the more challenging periods. Every day, I recognize how fortunate I am to have been able to serve as the Adjutant General of the Delaware National Guard. The mentorship, the leadership, and the support of our previous generations of soldiers and airmen has allowed me to look at the organization, identify the incredible talent that we have in all of our formations, and attempt to identify the ways in which I can support the soldiers and airmen to ensure they are able to fulfill their potential, all while enhancing the safety and the well-being of our fellow citizens. And should there become a time when they are expected to deploy in a humanitarian mission or full-scale combat operations, we will ensure that they are the best trained and best equipped force in the world. Every day, the members of our team demonstrate the highest levels of professionalism, and I am always impressed in the immediacy of their response and the effectiveness of their performance. So in 2010, I deployed to Bamiyan, Afghanistan as commander of an ETT, which is an embedded training team. It was attached to the 86th Infantry Brigade Combat Team of the Vermont Army National Guard. Now, the IBCT was made up of over 3,500 citizen soldiers from various states. Even my 24-soldier ETT represented National Guard soldiers from 5 different states and 24 different sets of life experiences and personal situations, all placed on hold for the deployment. Although the Delaware Army National Guard had deployed over 500 soldiers since 2003, and I had already been in the Army for over 22 years, this was the first time that I faced leading soldiers in combat. Now, I'll never forget the text message that I received from our headquarters. I was at a National Guard conference in Baltimore when a brief synopsis of the mission for the Delaware Army National Guard was forwarded to me. And it was quoted, ETT, commanded by a colonel, which was my rank at the time, with a mission of training the Afghan National Police. Now, in 2010, I was a lieutenant with the Delaware State Police, supervising the training and operations at the Firearms Training Unit. I knew I filled any criteria that would have been included, and I immediately experienced increased heart rate and apprehension. I forwarded that text to my wife, also a member of the Delaware Army National Guard, and her response was simply, pack your gear, we will be fine. Now, I relate this story to you because of the many emotions and thoughts going through my mind over the next couple of months. The same emotions and thoughts thousands of U.S. veterans have experienced since the founding of our great nation. We were fortunate during the deployment and blessed to be able to return all 24 ETT members to their families. I relate all this personal information to you to assist me in defining what it is like to be a veteran. I am extremely proud to be defined as such an honorable title as a United States military veteran. Our nation's veterans represent the best of the best in our society. As we grow up in that society, we have an obligation to recognize just how fortunate we are to be citizens of the United States. Every one of us benefits from all the freedoms guaranteed by the Constitution, as well as the political, social, and financial benefits that we enjoy every day. Each of us has freedom of choice within the law to set our own individual course for our future and practice the concept of self-determination. A lot of cliches can be used when describing our society. However, the bottom line is each of us is given the choice and the tools to be a productive member of society, and it is an individual decision as to what path we follow. I can spend hours talking about civic responsibilities. However, what is important for Veterans Day is to recognize that none of these freedoms would exist without the sacrifice of our veterans of our armed forces. I base this statement on the fact that with the stability provided by our armed forces in a world that's full of constant strife and turmoil, Our country is secure in its existence. Throughout the history of our nation, our armed forces have answered the call and defended our nation and our way of life. Without a doubt, we are the greatest military, political, and financial force in the world, and we depend on those citizens who volunteer to be the backbone of our nation and demonstrate our political and military power to the other nations of the world. We recognize there are threats out there, as we saw on 9/11 and continue to see on a daily basis. But our security all comes down to the professionalism of our armed forces and the willingness to answer the call when needed. And these individuals who are answering the call are your family members, your friends, your neighbors, and your coworkers. Every demographic of our society is represented in our military family, and this cross-segment of society is what makes us so strong. The members of the Delaware National Guard in particular, whether Army Guardsmen or Air Guardsmen, are in our communities, our schools, acting as coaches, civic association members, volunteer firemen, and any other community group that you can name. I have been witness to some incredible examples of the talent and dedication of our service members, and every day I am thankful to not only be a veteran, but to be a citizen of the United States. The response and the work of our soldiers and airmen provide for all of us a secure society that many other countries around the world aspire. Some highlights over the years include the Sussex County ice storm in 1994, in which the 262nd Maintenance Company located in Dagsboro was called up on state active duty to assist DelDOT and the power companies with clearing roads from all the downed trees and transport of dialysis patients and other medical emergencies. One moment in particular, a civilian was injured using a chainsaw, and the soldiers on scene administered first aid and evacuated the individual to the first accessible road for ambulance transfer to a local hospital. Following Hurricane Katrina in 2005, our Delaware National Guard signalers responded to Mississippi and established the only working communications network in the Gulf Coast counties, allowing the local first responders to save lives every day. Following Hurricane Sandy in October of 2012, the soldiers of the 1049th Transportation Company from Seaford were the first National Guard unit across the Verrazano Bridge heading to Brooklyn to provide relief and supplies for the citizens of New York. And finally, the years 2020 to 2021, in which the Delaware National Guard service members participated in multiple COVID response missions, including, on the operational side, the 166th Airlift Wing remained operational and responsive, ensuring that the flying mission never missed a beat in regards to the pandemic restrictions. Within our communities, a joint response force of soldiers and airmen mobilized and conducted pandemic data collection, COVID testing, COVID vaccinations, food and water distribution, critical warehouse staff missions, and most important, performing a certified nursing assistant support mission in which 100 service members graduated from certified nursing assistance course and received their Delaware certification in 2 weeks and immediately went to work in the long-term care facilities up and down the state, saving lives each and every day. As a member of a military reserve component, I like to discuss the three-legged stool that can be used to describe our service. The first leg is the citizen with a propensity to serve our nation, who takes the oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. The second leg is the family of the service member, who provides the stability, care, and peace of mind all service members require to be able to deploy to a foreign land and complete their missions. The third leg is the civilian employer. Reserve duty is a part-time job, and having full-time employers who recognize the importance of the reserve components is critical, not only to the service member, but to our society. Without supportive civilian employers, we would not have the reserve components. And if we had to rely on and pay for the same capacity of about 750,000 strong and a full-time force, our nation would have to make significant adjustments in spending simply to be able to afford the cost of defense. If any of the three legs fail to uphold their inherent responsibility, the stool falls over and the mission is a failure. Civilian employers are able to support their service members in many different ways, from paid time off for training and operations, supplemental income when service pay is below normal civilian pay, family support programs within the company, or simply recognition of the service that these individuals are providing to our communities and our nation as they move through their military careers. As we draw to a close in this speaking opportunity, I want to thank each and every one of our military veterans and their families at Chesapeake Utilities for their service, and a special recognition to their supervisors and co-workers who fill the gap when the service members are called to duty. Thank you to the community members for all of your support of our Delaware National Guard. Always ready, always there.